Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Thomas Podcast here today. I'm joined with Macauly to talk about Spider-Man Far From Home. And I hope I got the title right because I've been calling it No Way Home the entire time, and that's the next one. How are you there, Macauly? How you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, just obviously we're in hay fever season, so I apologise if I sneeze at any point in this podcast.
It's all right, I can cut it out.
Your headphones up too high.
It's all right, I can cut it out, so it's all good. Sorry if we both sound a bit off and a bit weird. We're both suffering with hay fever. Dry throats and all. It's a pain in the ass. But yeah, we're talking about Spider-Man. But first, Macaulay, I thought I'd ask you about all of the Doctor Who stuff that's been going on. Because since you were last on, it's like the universe has erupted.
As
What's your thoughts on everything that's been announced? We won't go into the things that you can look on the internet and find if you want to. But about all the stuff that's been physically announced so far, what are your thoughts?
so much going on. Honestly, I don't even know how to process it all. It's still not. It doesn't feel official, if that makes sense. It feels like it's all rumors still, and it's just like trolling us for like a long time.
Yeah, it sort of feels like fan fiction, like, oh, 6th anniversary, we're going to have David Tennant and Catherine Tate, and then they'll be back, and then also Neil Patrick Harris will be there, and stuff like that. So it's all bizarre and sort of weird.
Yeah, the Harris announcement that came, was that today?
It was yesterday.
It was last night, wasn't it? It was announced.
Yeah. When we're filming the show.
Yeah,
it'll be last week.
Yeah, time of recording. It was announced last night. But last week in terms of obviously when this goes out. Assuming this goes out next week.
Yeah, it does.
Cool.
Yeah.
So there might even be more announcements by then. But if there is, I'm sure check out our Twitter. We'll be raving about it.
If it's big enough, we'll make a video.
But yeah, Neil Patrick Harris, he's like an A-lister celebrity, isn't he? So
yeah,
that's good. Some serious audience members.
Yeah, we hope so. And I know him most from How I Met Your Mother, in which he's brilliant because he's just funny for 9 seasons. And I recommend if you're a fan there of How I Met Your Mother. Is it not your vibe?
I've only seen bits and pieces, to be honest. I've not seen it religiously, just a few episodes here and there. But I know him from a few other shows that probably nothing to do with like how his performance is going to be in Doctor Who, but he was in a series of Unfortunate Events though, which he did Count Olaf, which was a pretty good performance. So I feel like that's probably going to be the closest we're going to get. Otherwise, I don't think his role in Glee is going to be much to go by.
Well, as Brian Ryan, was that his name? It was something like that, wasn't it? It was something ridiculous.
I think so. It was Mr. Shue's like old co-worker or something, wasn't it, or rival?
And then they some dream on or something. I can't remember. I've seen that. I've seen that show through way too many times, I'd like to admit. But yeah, no, I'm excited. I think he's. What was that?
I said it shows since you know his character's name.
Yeah, I mean, I come from a family who love that show, so I used to watch it on repeat all the time. And it's like one of those guilty pleasures that you just like whenever you hear one of those songs, you remember you're like, oh yeah, that
Great show.
It was until season 3, and then it's sort of just we don't talk about the aftermath of that because it went proper.
And then the cast went a bit cut, and then yeah,
and now it is what it is. But yeah, I think the good thing, like you said, that we could tell is that Neil Patrick Harris clearly throws everything into a role. So no matter who he's playing, whether it be, we know it's a villain based on his Instagram post of how he was like, this doctor better watch out, sort of thing. So we know he's playing a villain of some form.
Few filming pictures out there as well that give us some clues as to what he might be. Obviously not confirmed, so speculation, but if you do enough searching, you'll find it.
Yeah, exactly. There could be some excited people. There could be specifically one contributor to the podcast who could be very excited by the time that episode airs, whenever it may be. Because who knows if it is actually the 60th anniversary, because it's all up in the air about what could actually be going down next year, because everything's sort of mental at this point. So who knows? It could be a Christmas special. It could be next November. It could be tomorrow.
Exactly. I don't think it's going to be tomorrow.
No.
There's 4 editors.
Imagine that Russell T is like, yeah, it's out now. iPlayer, watch it. We're like, okay. Jodie's like, what the fuck? It's like, yeah, no, of course we've got
But I do
Jodie's
feel
episode.
bad because without meaning to, I've accidentally forgotten that she's got a special left.
Yeah, and unfortunately, it's nothing to do with her fault. It's to do with the current production
No.
team that are still in control and decide to not bother. I mean, there's a rumor going around. This isn't spoilerific for the show. Rumor that perhaps Chris Chibnall turned down an appearance at SDCC to promote the show, and they put Russell T there instead. So instead of actually Jodie getting a final panel as the Doctor, Chibnall went, "Nah, don't want to do that. Sorry." Obviously Jodie wouldn't be there because she recently had a child, but it's really nice to celebrate her era one last time. You could perhaps get some people going there, but no. Instead, I mean, it just. I do sort of feel for Chibnall a little bit with the DWM interview, in which he said that he obviously was under a lot of stress, didn't want to take the right job, but got asked, and didn't want to see the show kind of just die and fade, so he took it. Without really having any plan. But yeah, I just think, unfortunately, Jodie's era, which was really well promoted in Series 11, the promotion just stopped, which is really bizarre.
Yeah, they got the hype up and then just dropped it. They did exactly the same in Moffat's era with the 50th anniversary. They built it all up, got a massive audience in, and then didn't go anywhere with it.
Yeah, so fingers crossed RTD can, I was saying this to Reese on his channel, but I was saying that hopefully with this, RTD can get figures back, can get certain. I'm not a figure guy, I know you are, but like I still want that sort of thing going around. I want the buzz of like, oh, there's this new wave of really good looking figures going around, not those was it 3.75s?
Yeah. I want to walk into a shop and see an action figure of Doctor Who on the shelf again that isn't B&M.
No.
Like,
goddamn B&M. I'm sick and tired of the B&M hunts because everyone has a go at me because I have a local B&M. They're like, go check out your B&M. I'm like, no, leave me alone. I don't want to. Do it yourself. But yeah, no, I just really hope it's exciting. I hope that they get somewhere that like it can be in the public eye again, because there's so much. Obviously, we know as massive Who fans when the show's on, but there are a lot of people that are like, "There's Doctor Who on," and you have to go, "Yeah."
Yeah, because we forget that obviously we follow all these channels and all these accounts that love the show as well. So we see it all the time, like all day, all week. So we know when there's any new media, even unofficially announced media, we know it straight away. But obviously all the people that don't follow this have no idea. So it really baffles me sometimes when people say they don't know about it. But obviously they haven't advertised it enough to the general public.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it is. But that's a big shame. I hope for the centenary they do some big final push for Jodie's era. That's all I can hope. But yeah, I'm excited. Also, quickly, your thoughts on Ncuti Gatwa. Are you happy with him? Are you happy with that announcement?
Yes, I'm very excited with Ncuti Gatwa. The announcement was random. Like, I was at my local convention. I was on a lunch break. I was in the line waiting for my food with my friend Sam. Literally, I had a text message from someone I worked with, like they've just announced the new Doctor. So I literally shouted at my friend. I was like, "Quick, they've announced the new Doctor!" Just as that happens, get my phone out. They passed me like my burger and my chips, and I've got no hands. Like, I'm like, I wanted to check with this news, and it was like food or Doctor Who. I was confused. I was like, yeah. So I grabbed the food, ran, sat down, checked it all, and then we just had a panic for about half an hour, just like trying to soak up this information, and it was just too much.
Was the convention good at least? I suppose, did it take a turn after that news? Were there a lot of Whovians there that then sort of created a buzz at the convention?
So it was weird. So when that happened, anyone in a Doctor Who cosplay, I went up and said, "Have you seen, they've just announced the new Doctor?" And they went, "No," and lost their shit the same that I did. And basically for about 10 or 15 different people I saw through the convention that I knew were massive Doctor Who fans, I thought it was my duty to inform them, because no one had seen it. Because it's one of like, you're at the event, you're not really focusing on social media, you're at the event to enjoy the event. So no one knew. And it was a great feeling, like seeing their faces light up, like about this news. And then when they saw the news, everyone was like really happy about it.
Yeah, I mean, it must have been incredible for doing be that. I mean, I can't imagine the dilemma of a burger and chips if I know the new Doctor is at that point.
It was like, yeah, phone in one hand, just about to check. It's like, "Oh, here's your food." I'm like, "Oh shit!" Like,
and you guys at the answer to wait, can you? And be like, You can't exactly ask the toy, be like, excuse me, the new Doctor's been announced, 2 minutes, please. And then be like, give her food. You have to sort of be like, oh.
Waiting ages for food. There's a massive queue. So, you know.
If only they announced it a minute before.
2 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
There was more pressing things.
It's perfectly timed for my break for me to process it and not be stuck behind like working. But also a great time to like, yeah.
Well, hopefully
yeah,
nothing.
I'm a massive fan of Sex Education. So
Me too.
I know his character Eric really well. I know he plays it really well. So I can see him bringing a lot to it. Like there's a lot of depth to his character Eric in Sex Education for various different storylines and things that his character goes through. So he can definitely pull it off for this new one. This new role, sorry. So I'm definitely excited to see that. Yeah, and there's going to be a lot of people coming to watch this who love Sex Education as well. And a lot of people also a lot of Who fans are going to be going and watch the new Barbie movie because he's one of the main characters in that as well. It's going to be a real odd turn of events in the next sort of 12 months.
It's Doctor Who fans should have said there's any Doctor Who Easter eggs in the Barbie movie to get them hyped.
Yeah, literally.
just Stephen Moffat in the background of the shots. There's your little joke. But no, I think I really think it's really cool casting. I was saying to John and others when it was announced was I think the Doctor has to be someone with a great personality. It's why I'm a big Jodie fan. That's why I think she's wonderful. I really like her as the Doctor because the personality to me is everything, right? You can be a really good actor and be the Doctor and have no personality, and I couldn't care. Luckily, we've been quite graced with brilliant personalities across the years, and I can't really say that any of them have bad personalities, but I can already tell that she.
It needs to be someone who needs to be in the role in and outside of the acting part, doesn't it? They need to be the role when they're not acting the role.
Yeah, exactly. And I think he's the perfect man to do that. I think he'll just embrace it. Hopefully they don't announce anything big at LFCC this year while we're just trudging around sat in that big hall and suddenly they announce something else. That's when they'll piss me off when they announce Matt Smith and then I'll be like, how do I compartmentalize this information? I'm still holding it.
They did that with David Tennant when I was there once. That was horrible. Over the tannoys, they were like, David Tennant will be attending tomorrow. I was like, shit. And everyone like, there was no signal, couldn't book tickets. It was horrible.
Yeah, just a wave of Whovians running towards the desk. Trying to get ticket. I
phoned my sister. I'm like, better. So.
Jesus, but no, it's just exciting. But yeah, Jesus Christ, let's just hope that everything's calm and nice. But yes, let's get on to Spider-Man. So obviously, last thing I hear Macauly, we spoke about Avengers Endgame, and this essentially is the film that deals with the fallout of that, the blip, as they now call it within this film, and we go on to call it throughout the rest of the MCU. Spider-Man essentially he's on vacation. He doesn't want to be a superhero anymore. He wants to fall in love with Zendaya, which is always a kind of a weird job that you sort of just have to go along with because they rarely interact in the last movie, but you just sort of have to go with it that he kind of likes her now, which is fine because he's a child and that's how, kids deal with emotions. So essentially he's got this massive plan on this European tour to make her fall in love. But then Nick Fury's on the phone. Something's going down. He wants to talk to Spider-Man about something, but Spider-Man's like, no, I don't want to deal with that right now. Until he's on holiday and a water monster attacks, and then Nick Fury trank darts Ned. And he's like, no, I need you along with me for this ride. And Spider-Man's still like, do you know what? No, I don't want to. But Nick Fury's got other plans. He's like, no, I'm going to reroute your entire trip. So you have to follow us around Europe to help fight these elemental creatures. And then we meet a new character called Quentin Beck, who's from a different universe, who unfortunately his universe perished because these creatures called the elementals, which are born from an Earth's core or something. It's very cryptic on purpose. And then essentially Spider-Man and Mysterio have to try and save the day. And can Peter also manage to get the love of his life whilst on this chaotic trip? That's kind of the film, right?
Yeah, I think you've summed it up. And that's the end of the podcast. Done. Sorted. 10 minutes.
Yeah. Is it done? We're done. What did you make of this film, then, mate? You a fan? I know you're a fan of the Tom Holland era of Spider-Man, so you a fan?
Yeah, so I thought it was great. Like the stakes were high, in terms of like after Endgame, but not too high because it's not Avengers level threat really. But there's a lot of riding on Peter's shoulders in this film. Obviously, he's just he's just lost Tony Stark, one of the main sort of like role models in his life. And the world obviously won't let him mourn because who's the next Iron Man? It's all pressure on Peter, which is part of the main, obviously, plot of this film, which gets into all the trouble later on.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's a really good character to choose the continuation of the story on. Yeah, I think they chose a really good character to do that, and I think Peter and Tom Holland in this film is excellent. I think he's excellent all throughout, and I think he just gets better as the films go on. But in this, he's excellent. Kind of playing that kid who's unsure. I also like the fact it's sort of the opposite of Homecoming, but he really wants to be the superhero, couldn't really care about any of the real life sort of chatty stuff. He wanted just to be a hero and prove Tony right. In this film, he doesn't actually want that legacy and he wants to move on and just be a regular kid. So it's nice he gets to play the total opposite. And I think it's fantastic. And I think overall, like you say, there were a lot of complaints when the film first came out that it sort of makes a joke out of Endgame. I don't see that at all. I think, if anything, the emotional impact is throughout this entire film. I mean, there are jokes about it, like the fact that when May says, "Oh, I blipped back and into this lovely couple's home, and she thought I was a mistress and stuff like that." And there are jokes about it, and you get like the clip of the basketball game, and then I guess the band who were at the start of a game playing and then reappear, and so you do get jokes. But I think overall it's well handled for sure.
Yes, one of my favorite moments in that whole film is the opening of the film, just after you've had obviously Nick Fury pull up with Maria. Is it Maria Hill that he's with?
Yeah, Maria Hill, yeah. Maria Hill.
Yeah, so it goes straight to school and you see the memoriam video on the TV show. That is my favorite bit of that whole film. Just like Whitney Houston and some really shit Photoshop clip art type style video. It's honestly amazing. Like,
I knew I loved it as soon as the Comic Sans text popped up. It was just like, yeah, I'm involved. Yeah, I have to agree with you. I think that it totally strikes it well. I think one of the best parts of this film is that you get a lot of the teachers in this film. So you get a lot of Martin Starr and JB Smoove as the two teachers. You get their dynamic, especially Mr. Harrington.
Mr. Harrington is like one of the worst teachers, but he has some great like moments in this film, definitely.
Such a sweetheart. He's like, oh, my wife pretended to blip, and then we had a funeral for her and everything. She ran away with somebody in the hiking gloves. It was like, oh. Yeah. Then he drops the camera in the lake, and it's like, oh, poor bloke.
And where he nearly gets like shot by Nick Fury.
Yeah.
But do you want cancelling? No, good, because I don't know how to do it.
Yeah, it's great. And then also JB Smooth's teacher being like, as a man of science, I'm thinking witches.
Yeah, I liked that line as well.
And the it's like, I'm going to be the cool teacher right now. You shouldn't take photos of people in bathrooms. Urinals, all stars.
Loads of.
Yeah, it's really smartly written. I think it's really like you get the funny things as well. Is you're reminded that they're kids that Ned and Betty get this relationship that just starts over an entire flight, and Ned's entire personality changes from wanting to be this bachelor in New York to then wanting to be like this romantic sort of suave guy. He's like this boy met a woman, and now this boy is a man. It's like stuff like that. It's perfect dialogue.
Yeah, all of that failed perfume allergy for Peter attempt, which is like Mr. Harrington. That whole sequence is great.
Yeah, we unfortunately meet Brad. No one likes Brad. Nobody likes anyone like Brad.
He came out of nowhere. Was he in the first film?
No, because he was a kid in the first film, wasn't he? The whole point is that he was 5 years younger than them. He didn't blip. They all blipped. So then when they come back,
conveniently that the main.
Yeah, exactly. That does allow for another cool joke though, where Flash is drinking I'm going to assume it's champagne on the plane after he insults Peter. So then MJ kind of has back a little bit.
It's like he's not 21, he blipped, sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So there is some nice comedy there. The best bit in that entire plane thing is that gets me when Peter walks out the bathroom, sees MJ there, so he tries to wipe all the surfaces vigorously. We flushed the toilet. It's just all that kind of like funny little bits where you like their relationship. I think in this film is really well handled. I think that it's kind of like the emotional core of the film, and because Zendaya and Tom Holland obviously have really good chemistry with each other, they can do a lot of the comedic stuff. They can you can kind of buy into their relationship and that kind of teenage awkwardness that they have around each other within those moments. So I think it's really well done. I think it's brilliant.
Yeah, definitely. I think one thing that maybe like the film and the previous film didn't really do as well, as you sort of touched upon slightly, is that there's not many interactions between obviously MJ and Peter. So there's not really much room for that relationship to develop. By the time we get to No Way Home, they seem to be really gelled, but there isn't a gap between those films, or that makes sense for them to have.
I mean, like I said, I think I suppose that is a problem. I think the thing is that obviously because they started to date in real life, I think they just kind of ran with it a little bit more. I think they just kind of went, oh well, everyone knows they kind of get on. We may as well just go. Clearly, they're comfortable with each other. Just go whole hog with it and just kind of let them be a cutesy couple. Obviously, as well, I think you kind of need that for No Way Home in the next one. But yeah, I think literally, like I said earlier on, is that in the first 2 minutes or something of this film, he goes, "I got a plan," and it's about him trying to get with MJ. There's no like context as to when this happened or when he started to like her or anything. It's just nope. He likes her now. I mean, just got to go along with it.
Yeah,
like I said,
not really much. There's not really much of a gap, is there, between Endgame and Far From Home?
No, because I think it's like a couple months, maybe.
Yeah.
But another great little relationship you get in this film is Happy and May, which is
their fling, summer fling, or depending on which side of the you sit.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, it ends up being a summer fling for Happy, and then it was weird seeing May in this film as well because I was like, "This Jesus." Obviously we know what happens to her in No Way Home, but yeah, I think overall they're back and forth, and also I think the good thing about I don't say the good thing, but the one character that has shone the most since Tony's passing is Jon Favreau's Happy Hogan in these Spider-Man films. I think he's not kind of taken over that role, and in my opinion, done it better than Tony ever was, because he actually kind of is like a dad. You can tell there is that care of Peter, especially in the final act of this film where he comes and picks him up from that Dutch town that I'm not going to even try and pronounce. But yeah, I think he's brilliant in this film, and it's a lot of comedic stuff. And so like when he's about to die, he goes, "I'm in love with Spider-Man's aunt." It's just like everyone looks at him like so they will give their little confessions. I think overall is brilliant, and so is Marissa Tomei as Aunt May, even though she doesn't do too much in this film, and her film is kind of the next one, I suppose. I think this is probably the film where she's in it the least, and probably has the least amount of impact on the story. I think, if I had to guess, because she's in Homecoming a bit more, isn't she? She has a bit more to do in Homecoming.
Yeah, she's a bit more in Homecoming. This one, her main role was nearly like I'd say the start of the film, where it's introducing what she's been doing since the blip, and as well with Peter as well with the Salvation Army, of them actually sort of helping and supporting people. Yeah,
exactly. And obviously the big MVP of this film, in my opinion, is Jake Gyllenhaal as Quentin Beck, Mysterio, which we never really find out if Quentin Beck is his real name, but we got to go with the fact that it's Quentin Beck. But I think he's brilliant in this. And
the acting skills are great, and he definitely portrayed it like great. Like if I was watching this first time, you wouldn't even know there's any like sort of qualms about if he was like legit or not.
No, exactly. He's rather good. Like you say, if you watch it for the first time,
he flips quite quick. Well,
and he does it really well because he sort of does ham it up a little bit because clearly they realize there's not much time left in the movie to buy him as a villain, so he's got to do it really quickly and just kind of go over the top a little bit to the point where you can tell he's absolutely off his rocker and he's clearly mental. So he has that maniacal laugh and the big raising eyebrow and stuff. But yeah, like you say, He's also really good at the quieter moments of Peter, and I realized on this rewatch that there is a slight bit of care for Peter. Like, even though he's still mental, he still likes Peter, but Peter's just in his way. He doesn't want to actually harm Peter or anybody. Well, he does want to harm some people, but not the kids. But he has to, in his own words, because they're in his way. So, in his own weird, messed up way, he does care.
Well, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. I would say the Vulture's slightly better as a villain because obviously we see a bit more of his backstory and stuff. I think we have more time with him as a villain, but I think Jake Gyllenhaal in this film is still absolutely superb. I think it's one of those kind of things which is particularly interesting. Well, it's how this film, kind of doesn't really have a villain for the first hour. Like, I thought it was much earlier in the film, kind of when you get that reveal of what's going on. It's quite late on. Like, it's like an hour and 10 in, and of a film that is just under 2 hours, if you don't count the credits. So it doesn't mess around with its runtime.
All of the promotion for this film was all based around the Elementals. Yeah. So we'd believe that they were the villains essentially, but they all get dealt with pretty quick in the film. So I don't know what I was thinking when I was watching the film, but the reveal of Mysterio doesn't come long after they finished killing the Molten Man, do they?
No, it's like in that you cut straight to the scene in the bar, don't you? So
yeah. So I remember literally they had all of the Funkos of it, all of the Lego sets, all of the figures were all just based around the Elementals. So they definitely hid it well in terms of like, so obviously Mysterio, we know this one was a fake, but like obviously in the Marvel universe, Mysterio is this actual character that does all of the things that Quentin Beck pretends to do. So there wouldn't be any reason why we would question that it would be otherwise. So it's definitely something that came out of nowhere.
Oh, absolutely. It's one of those kind of I think as well, because a lot of the promotional things was, these guys are teaming up. This isn't what you think it's going to be. Which now we know, that was kind of the first ever deception from Marvel, really, was Tom Holland and Jake going on, kind of like the press tour together as buds and being like, no, we're not doing the comic thing. In this film, Mysterio is teaming up with Spidey, and that's what we're doing. And we went, oh, okay. So obviously when you get that reveal, when, like I say, it is very well done and quite well placed and very well performed. It's very, very good. I don't like, but it comes in the post credits. And that's the random scroll inclusion of Nick Fury, Maria Hill.
And that really bad green screen Nick Fury on beach.
Yeah. It's just, I just think it kind of takes away from the film to go, oh, so this thing that can kind of work, I suppose. Yeah, that wasn't Nick Fury the whole time. That it's sort of like, oh, okay, cool, I guess. It sort of feels like one of those MCU add-ins for no reason.
Yeah, like if it was Nick Fury, and if it wasn't Nick Fury, it doesn't take away from the story at all, like not one bit.
Yeah, it just sort of feels like one of those things where they went, oh, look, this is connected to Marvel because there's a scroll. Even though Iron Man is all over this film, we didn't need that, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Even though, what was it? They reference it in the next film as well when Peter's like, oh, ask Nick Fury. And they're like, oh, Nick Fury hasn't been on Earth for X amount of time, so it couldn't have been him, sort of thing, as a throwaway line. Like,
yeah,
so it doesn't seem necessary.
Yeah, it's weird, and it just sort of feels. I would have liked that.
He's in space, isn't he, with the Skrulls, because he's off on a mission with Captain Marvel and Monica Rambeau and stuff.
Is it Sword? Is it called Sword? I think.
Yeah, Sword. Yeah. So he's got like Monica Rambeau. Who else?
Miss Marvel, I'm sure will join the ranks soon enough. Up there. Well, because she's in the Marvels, isn't she? So I suppose she's involved somehow within that.
Yes, basically Nick Fury is doing Avengers Point 2 upstairs while this is all going on. So
yeah, and I do sort of feel like that does take away. It does take away from that dynamic, because I actually would have loved Nick Fury to sort of be the man to kind of push the new generation of these heroes there, like he did with the first. He didn't have to appear in every film like he did in Phase One, but to kind of kickstart that would have been a nice touch. So it actually kind of gets taken away a little bit. And then there are scenes early on in the movie where they're in isolation, where you've just got to accept that they're undercover, I suppose, and pretending to be the cat. It just sort of feels like it's one of those reveals that was written in after the script was done, and they went, "Oh, we could make them Skrulls." And you kind of have to go, "Oh, all right." It just doesn't feel like you. There's not that moment where it clicks and you go, "That's why they were acting weird," because they just act normal. Like there's no kind of like indication of it being off. There's no indication of it being a weird sort of deception. So it just sort of feels a bit cheap. But yeah, I think overall it's a weird reveal, which doesn't need to be there in a film that is quite smartly written. I mean, I don't know if you picked up on this as well, but like in the background of the shots in Venice is the first place they go, right? In Italy.
Yeah.
You can see like Quentin Beck in the background of one shot just looking at Peter, which you don't realize until, and you see Guterman in the background and other people as well. And it's like, they really did a lot of attention to detail. So yeah, it just kind of feels a bit cheap.
He's even on the plane, isn't he? Quentin Black.
He's on the plane.
I think he's on the plane. As he gets on, he's in the cap. I'm pretty sure that's him.
Oh, Christ.
I think so. I have to go back and fact check that, but I'm pretty sure on the plane.
That'd be pretty smart. But yeah, one character I do feel gets kind of a bit sidelined in this film for good reason is Ned. I feel like Ned doesn't really have much impact on this film. He sort of has that one joke with Betty, and then because they sort of want to do more with him in the next film, they sort of just drop it by the end. So he's kind of, what he does in this film is sort of pointless.
Yeah, he's just sort of like ushering them sort of to the side, isn't he? And then it's just like he's there for MJ, just be like, "Yeah, I knew before you," and then that's it, really. Like he doesn't have any help at all in terms of like defeating Mysterio or anything. Like,
no, it just sort of feels bizarre because again, he's not even really a feature in the beginning of the film because he gets taken out of it with the Betty thing quite early on. So we don't even get many scenes apart from the first few minutes with Ned and Peter, and even then it's like one scene. So, which is really a shame because that was probably one of the better things about Homecoming was their dynamic, their back and forth.
Yeah, and then they work really well as a trio in the third film.
Yeah, so
in the next one.
Yeah, exactly. Another character that's just weird to me is like that Dimitri character because he just sort of feels pointless again. They sort of build him up under the bridge to be like this. I think he was originally in the script going to be somebody quite different, but again, this movie just kind of feels a bit weird. Like he sort of drives them to Prague, I think, and then disappears for the rest of the movie. You get that really weird kind of drone sequence sort of thing, which it was funny because he just wants to kill Brad. Nobody likes Brad. Just people like Brad, man, taking a photo of you in your worst moment. You're meant to be a friend or for a girl. What a joke. That is.
I remember the coach, and Peter's like, "Yeah, he's a target. They're going to attack him." And then you get that whole sequence of like Flash nicking the Edith glasses, Peter then knocking him out.
Yeah,
and then and then the distraction, the mountain goats, where Peter jumps out, destroys the drone, and comes back down looking like Tony Stark.
Yeah, and then Betty has a good line of Peter. Don't think we all haven't noticed your new look. I'm digging it.
Yeah,
but also some weird decisions of like Peter knocks Ned out and then never gets any repercussions for that at all. There's one character who says, "Did you punch Ned?" And he goes, "No." And that's it. Like, Ned never goes, considering Ned is meant to be the bully as well. Maybe not as traditional as other Flash Thompsons who are kind of big and buff, but even so, you thought you'd never see between those two. But you do get a funny moment towards the beginning of the film where he's like, "I just really like Spider-Man. He inspires me to be a better person," and then turns to it and goes, "Sup, dickwad."
Yeah.
It was obviously it's a shame as well that in the next film, No Way Home, we didn't actually get a scene between those two or any kind of realization. We kind of get the look on the phone when he's on TikTok and he goes, "What?" And that's sort of it. Like I would have loved to have seen more of a back and forth, but I suppose with that maybe there wasn't enough time. But there's a new cut of the new film coming out in cinemas, which is bizarre to me.
Yeah, which is due. It's the friendly neighborhood version, isn't it? Or something like that.
So you're going to call it the more fun stuffs or something. It's had a really bizarre
Yeah, and it's
title.
due. It's September, October release, I think.
But isn't all that stuff available on the Blu-ray, or is this new stuff that nobody's seen?
I don't think they've said, but I've not got the Blu-ray yet of that film, so I'm going to wait until this extended cut comes out and then buy that one because they'll probably release it again.
Yeah, I'd probably go see it in the cinema one more time anyway, just because.
Yeah, I'll probably go and watch it again. I've already watched that 3 times in the last 2 months, so
I don't know.
More can I say about the film? So,
whereas this film is you've seen it twice. Like today was your second go at it.
Yeah, after the first time that it was released, which wasn't done intentionally. It was released end of 2019.
Summer 2019, I think.
Yeah, so I think the actual home media came out near Christmas, maybe early 2020.
Yeah.
And I'm just one of those people that likes to collect things. So I've got all of the Marvel sleeves for all the previous Marvel films, all the way up until I think Infinity War was the last one I bought. So they haven't released the new Spider-Man No Way Home version yet. So I was waiting for that to be released, and to this day, it still hasn't been released. So
have they got an Endgame one yet?
Yeah, they've got an Endgame one. I just haven't bought the physical media of it yet because it's on Disney Plus. Obviously, the only ones that haven't been released on Disney Plus are Spider-Man. The Spider-Mans, basically. That's it.
And now they're coming to Disney Plus on Friday. Well, last Friday when this comes out, it's been announced that they are joining Disney Plus.
They're only releasing the original trilogy with Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire.
And Homecoming.
But No Way Home and Far From Home.
Far From Home I sort of get, but No Way Home I don't. No, sorry, No Way Home I understand. Far From Home I don't understand. But why is that not on? If it's not on any of the streaming service right now, why is it not there?
But Sony do have an exclusive deal with Netflix. They probably get exclusive
rights. In the US they do. But in the US they do, which is why we're getting it in Disney Plus on the UK. Another thing that I'd say is weak in this film, but by design, is the action sequences. Like none of the sequences that I think are cool in the Tom Holland era of Spider-Man I would probably pick from this film, really. Like they're fine, but they're not magnificent sort of.
But you could also blame that on either like a plot point of view, because I also picked up on this as well. So the action doesn't seem really high packed, and also the CGI isn't amazing on it.
Yeah,
even on actual Mysterio himself. But then that's obviously can be down to it being hologram projectors produced by can't remember that character's name, but the one from is it Iron Man one?
William Ginter Reaver.
Yeah. So you could blame the bad CGI and the basic sort of action sequences on that based on the illusions and just being like handmade real life holograms. That's the only thing I can put down to in my head. I don't know if that was deliberately done by the production team.
I assume there was parts. I assume there were like elements of that.
But then if you look at Homecoming, there's some really dodgy CGI in that movie, especially of Peter going up the monument as Spider-Man. And then also the fight sequence of Black Panther was awful near the end as well.
Oh, Christ.
Yeah, not that I could do any better, but you know, when you've got these flagship superheroes, especially, I get Black Panther maybe, like they weren't sure how it's going to turn out, but Spider-Man, he's one of their main flagship characters. You thought they would put a bit more effort and money into it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, yeah,
when looks as good as he did in Endgame, like you know, a model for Spider-Man can't be that hard to do.
No, I agree with you, and I think, like you say, when you've gone from the heights of Endgame to then this, it does sort of feel like a bit of a drop. But like I said, like you said, like I said, it could be a bit by design and by story design to sort of kind of indicate that not everything is as it seems on purpose. However, that does still have an effect on the actual enjoyment of the superhero film in which you want to watch some action. And even like Mysterio, like you get the cool Mysterio sequence. That's probably the best part of the film. It's the cool like.
We're talking about the bit. He's talking a bit after he sees Nick Fury in the warehouse type scene.
Yeah, that stuff. Yeah,
that's a really good sequence. I'd say that's probably one of the highlights of the film in terms of things that actually
Oh,
happen.
God, yeah.
It's a big like sort of mind-boggling thing.
Yeah, absolutely. You get some really cool imagery as well of like the grave and then Iron Man coming out from the grave with spiders all over him and stuff. And you get Mysterio taking off his fishbowl and there being tons of Mysterios and stuff. That's really cool. And you get the whole thing with the Spidey sense, which is fine. And he saves the day. But I just thought the Peter Tingle, as they call it. But yeah, I just think the action's like fine. It's one of those things I was like, I think at the end it would be nice to have a bit more of a nice action sequence. Like it does fall a bit flat. Like I still don't really understand how he dies. So he catches the gun and stops the shot, and that kills Beck.
No idea. I thought we got caught. To be fair, going to be honest here. At that point, I sort of got a bit distracted and didn't pay attention. I know that he said that he commences the drone attack on Peter, but also being in the firing line, I think it's like 90% rate or something like that.
Oh, so did he get hit by? Did he get by a drone? Yeah, that makes sense.
I was assuming he got hit by a drone because Edith didn't want to fire because Quentin was in the firing line, but he said do it anyway. So all of the drones were firing on that fire zone. So I'm assuming he got in the crossfire and died in that sort of sense.
Yeah, it was fine. I just like, and you get a comment for Peter where he uses his tingle, if you want to call it that, and manages to like see through the deceptions, and you get a nice romantic bit at the end with MJ, which is really cool, where they sort of have that again, that awkward, nice teen sort of romance stuff, where they sort of want to tell each other but don't because they don't know how to say it correctly, sort of thing, which is nice. And it's like, it's fine. The end point's great, but I would like a bit more of a back and forth between Quentin and Peter about the lies and the whole, you betrayed me. You don't really get that. It just sort of like, oh, he gets through the drones, he destroys the hologram. In the end, yeah, like it falls flat a little bit for me there. Just a little bit. But then also this film decides to as well not finish before the post credits. So it sort of finishes, but then you would have to have watched the post credits to understand the beginning of the next film.
Yeah, because if you don't watch it and then you start on the next film, you get the recap, but it also confuses you where the last one left off.
Yeah. Obviously, it has one of the most wow moments of all time, where Spider-Man being outed by, of all people, J. Jonah Jameson returning from
they kept doing the man himself. I remember the internet broke when his appearance came up. And then
I remember this as well, because I remember the big thing is that this just happened, this film just happened. And then a week later I went to see the Beatles film yesterday. And then the day I went to see that film, it was announced that the Sony and Marvel deal was ending. And every fan was sat there like, you just cliffhangered it like that. Where do we go from here? So that was like the big internet meltdown at the time.
Yeah, there was a massive uproar because they were like, Sony were like, yeah, no, we can do Spider-Man on our own now, thank you very much. And then all the fans were like, no.
No.
We want Spider-Man in the MCU. And then Tom Holland got on board and was like, hey.
He got wankered and thought, I'm going to ring up. He got drunk and rang up the head of Disney and was like, no, please, sort it out.
Yeah, Mr. Mickey Mouse, I want to come back to Disney and shoot Spider-Man.
Yeah. And now we have to hope that it's not the end for him in the MCU. Now again,
I don't think they've left it open for new ones, but they've not closed it. So
no, I wouldn't be satisfied if it was the end. To be honest, I think if that was it, I'd be like, no, I want to see him and MJ happy together. Why did you end on such a sour note? So fingers crossed. But yeah, I think this film ends all right. I think this year's is that it sort of ends in a position to set up the next film a bit too much. Now that we've seen the next film,
work as a standalone film, essentially, does it?
No, and the best MCU films do. I mean, apart from Infinity War and Endgame, which you sort of do have to, but that's understandable because it's a culmination of everything. So you kind of feel like you have to watch everything to know that. But yeah, no, this one doesn't stand on its own 2 feet. Towards the end, it's sort of, how to describe it? It's sort of like the the worst kind of like TV finales. So, for example, the Doctor Who spin-off Class, which is an interesting show in itself, that finale was just build up for the next series that then never happened, and that didn't even feel like a finale. So again, this even though it's not the final Spider-Man film, it doesn't feel like a complete film. It just sort of feels like it ends its plot, and then Russell, like, oh, we've got a cooler plot coming up for you now, so get ready for that because that's so much more fun than what you just watched. It's like, okay.
It literally, like, that whole film was basically just a setup for the third film. Because obviously, we know the third film is basically around Peter trying to make everyone forget who he was because of all that sort of stuff. Whereas the first film was just a build up for him to reveal that.
Yeah.
He even makes a little nod to, well, doesn't he? In when he's speaking with Aunt May and Happy, he says, "Oh, I think it's time for the words to come clean now. Everyone needs to know." And then you think he's about to say, obviously, they need to know that on Spider-Man, but he doesn't. He flips it and says, "Are you dating?" sort of thing.
Yeah.
As like a little tease.
Yeah, and I think obviously I can say this. We haven't done the last Spider-Man film yet. That will come in a few weeks or a month or so. But it did pay off in the end for me. But I just feel like now, after seeing that film and rewatching this one, it does kind of take away from this film a little bit, because you sort of do see how much they sacrifice the end of this to set up the next one.
Yeah, definitely. And it was what, 2-3 years we waited for the conclusion of this story. It just seems a lot. Yeah,
just one of those things where it's still a good film, it's still fun, but it just kind of feels like a bit like you watch the end of it and you're like, oh, I had a really good time. I think the best part about it for me is all the European stuff in the first half, like when they're just being school kids and wandering around Europe. That's really fun. And when it becomes a bit more plot heavy in the second half, it's not bad, but it's not as interesting as that first kind of high school half of the film. For me, anyway. I don't know about yourself.
Because the main thing about Spider-Man, especially in this era of him, is that he's supposed to be a young hero, just like a normal, average sort of teenage boy discovering these powers with small level threats, adjusting to normal life. And the second half of the film doesn't really give you that sort of vibe.
Yeah, and I do think, although I did praise it, like Quentin Beck's turn to insanity is just way too quick. It's like, yeah, I don't like killing people now. It's like, huh?
I tend to find that a lot with a lot of villains. Like, one of my main gripes with the Venom film, I love Venom, but the one gripe with that film I have is that the pacing was off. Like, the quick switch to, no, we're not killing anyone, absolutely no one, it's not right, to actually maybe just the bad ones, and then he kills some people in literally the next scene. It's too quick. Same with Carnage as well. Like, supposed to be a serial killer, but that flips too quick as well. It just comes out of nowhere. I think it's a downfall that a lot of people have with villains, essentially. I think they flip them too quick without having the explanation why or building up enough.
Yeah, totally. I think this is exactly that. But quickly to wrap up, I will say this. I think this is a really fun film, but I would say it's one of the weaker MCU films, which is not a negative, because there are a lot of strong MCU films that I really enjoy. But I would say that I always say this with the MCU, I don't really tend to like put them in a list, but I always go with, if you gave me every MCU film on Disney Plus, just pretend the Spider-Man ones are there, and you said, which one do you want to watch? It would take me 15 or 16 times before I chose this one as the one to pick, if you know what I'm trying to say. Like, I don't normally tend to pick this one if I'm in an MCU kind of mood.
Yeah, so I think me being a massive Spider-Man fan, like, I'll watch Homecoming anytime I want. Same with No Way Home. Far From Home feels more like a bridge film than an actual film. So, as you said before, if you're picking a film, I wouldn't instantly go, oh, let's watch Far From Home because it's a nice film. If you watch Far From Home, you have to watch No Way Home after. You can't. It's like Endgame and Infinity War. You have to watch them together, really. You can't watch one without the other.
Yeah, exactly. I would still give it like, if we're doing our regular...
Does the job. It's just, it's not a standalone film, it's a bridge film. So that's probably, that's it, really.
Yeah, if we're doing our regular out of 10 scores, I'd probably give it a 7, probably a 7.5. It's still good fun. It's still a film that if you said, hey, I want to watch this, I'd be like, okay, let's watch it. I'm not going to go, oh no, let's not watch that film. I'd still watch it, but I just wouldn't pick it myself. What about yourself? If you had to give it out of 10 score, would you give it?
Probably about a 6 or 7.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, all the acting in it's great. The characterizations are great. The plot line's good. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's an average film, but I wouldn't say it's like awful. It's not amazing, but it does the job of what it's supposed to do, which is set up the next film and the future of Spider-Man, essentially.
Awesome.
And then most of that obviously pays off in the final film, which we can talk more about in the next one.
Whenever we get around to it. Interestingly, the day after this goes out, we would have been at the BFI to watch the Peter Cushing. Well, I'm going to say movie because I'm not watching both. But yeah, so for those of you that have been asking when we're going to do the second Peter Cushing movie, because the people that have been, I don't know. We'll get around to it at some point. It'll be out. I don't like it. Was one of those things where we're like, we'll do it the month after, and then it just kept pushed back, and we never mentioned it. And then
more to do with actually watching the film, because I said I'd do the first. We did the first one mainly because I'd never seen it before, and then Owen was like, "Yeah, I'll jump on and do it anyway." So I bought the Blu-ray on Amazon, and I watched it, and then we did the podcast, and it's like, cool, that was fun. We'll do the second film at some point. At some point, never got arranged, and then they were like, "Hey, here's the new ones in 4K." So we thought, yeah, we're gonna go and watch them. So this is the perfect time for it. Really.
It will happen. Give it a few weeks.
Yeah.
It will happen. Same thing with No Way Home, because all we got left is Eternals, which I know you said as well you'd want to be on because you're the only person that's going to jump on that gun.
I'm one of 3 fans in the world that enjoyed Eternals.
So that will come out at some point as well. But Macauly, anything before we wrap up? I don't know. We'll sort it out again. It'll happen. That's what happens at the show. I'll DM whenever I've got a free week of nothing going on. I'll message you and be like, "So, do you want to do one of those films?" We'll be like, "Yeah, screw it." Yeah, exactly. But anything you want to shout out before we wrap up and anything like
that? No, I think I'm all good. No, obviously that we've got Ms. Marvel tomorrow, which we would have seen last week.
Yeah, it kicked off very well. I thought it was very fun. A good first episode.
Yeah, I've thoroughly enjoyed Ms. Marvel. I'm very looking forward to episode 2
as well, because I couldn't care. So have you been enjoying that? Because I've not been watching it.
I've really enjoyed Kenobi. I'd highly recommend going watch it. It's really fun.
I don't like Star Wars, do I? So it's one of those things which, like, I know I'm one of those people in the world that just, you're one of the people that likes Eternals. I'm one of the 3 people in the world that hate Star Wars, right? So we have our little niches there.
You can't like everything.
Yeah, exactly. I've been liking The Boys a lot recently. This is The Boys, which has been particularly interesting. Because it's very quite gross. But yes, please do like, comment, and subscribe to the channel on YouTube, or you can follow us on all of our streaming platforms like Spotify, iTunes, all the rest of it. There is a link tree on the social medias, which is at the Timers Pod. And if you want to follow me, you can follow me at AlexKing_Dom. You can follow Macauly. Is it just at Macauly Carnes? Is that right? Is it different now?
Yeah,
I thought so.
Instagram.
Do you still do your figure photography Instagram, or is that gone?
I do. I posted something today. Basically, there's been a lack of content because there's been a lack of merchandise.
Yeah, you had to change. Did you change the name in the end, or did you not change the name in the end?
I did change the name. Yeah, it's now Who Merch Collector 07 because it was Mickey Smith 07 before, but Noel Clark turned out to be a twat, so that got changed very quickly.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me, mate, and can't wait for the next few podcasts on the road, especially Eternals. That's going to be a fun one, I think.
Definitely.
All right. Take care, guys. We'll see you guys soon. Bye.